I'm the best. No, I'm the best. Friends, calm down. You're both the best. It's just different things.
Does that mean I'm the best too?
Sure. Ladies, gentlemen, and pals of all ages, it's time for a sort of best in show. A talent competition between the best of the best pals in the game, and the talent they're trying to show off is murder. The way they're showing it off? By representing their elemental type. If you haven't worked it out from that, today is all about talking about the various kinds of pals in the game, how they relate to each other as far as their typing goes, and then quite simply the best pal or two of each type available in the game currently, if you care about pure stats and effectiveness in combat type things. To start off then, here is the in-game depiction of elemental type so you can see how it works around, and we will essentially be following this backwards from neutral type as far as the order will be going in. On which note, let's talk neutral type. Neutral pals are strong against nothing in particular, and they are only weak to dark type pals. Their damage is very flat because they aren't strong against other things, meaning that it is easy to predict. As well, neutral type pals seem to do a bit more flat damage in general to compensate for them not being super effective against any other type. The best neutral pal in the game is, unsurprisingly, the legendary pal associated with this type, which is Paladius. His stats are nuts. He comes inherently in the wild with the Legend and Celestial Emperor passive skills, boosting what we want from him anyways, and he comes with that nasty giant bonus HP pool that the Alpha World Boss legendary pals do get. That said, I know a lot of people want to know a bit more than that. Legendaries are a bit obvious, so of course for any category where a legendary is the best like this one, I will also tell you the second best that you can get before that point. Aside from Paladius then, who can again be found here in the northeastern desert all the way at the northern point, the second strongest neutral pal is actually Kingpaca. This giant fluffball is an absolute tank of a pal, massive HP pool far above average defense, and his attack stat is decent enough as well, and very boostable with the right skills through breeding. His unique attack, Kingly Slam, is also incredibly high damage considering the low cooldown that it has too. Kingpaca can be found as an Alpha World Boss as early as level 23, right here near the starting area of the game. Second up then we move to Dark type pals. These are super effective against neutral types, but weak against Dragon type pals. The strongest Dark type pal there is, unsurprisingly, is Necromus, the other half of the combo with Paladius, another legendary pal. They both spawn in the same location, they fight together, and they are both the best of their individual typings. Being legendaries, they just get a massive HP bonus and stat bonus in general compared to non-legendaries. That said, the best non-legendary Dark pal is going to be Shadowbeak, the magical bird. Between the unique skill Divine Disaster and the damage output that it has, Shadowbeak being a fantastic flying mount as well, and the fact that it also has fantastic stats, and you can grab it from Wildlife Sanctuary number 3, the island up here, or you can even breed it into the relatively early game if you want it early on too. Then third we have Dragon type, which is strong against dark, but weak against ice type pals. The best Dragon type pal, without a doubt, is Jetragon. I know, another legendary, it is what it is, but he has crazy stats, and some really strong dragon attack access too. That giant HP boost from being an alpha legendary, and of course he is the fastest flying mount in the whole game, meaning he will be a part of 9 out of 10 parties that players have once you get him, just for utility if nothing else. He's of course found over here on the northwest side of the volcano area itself. If that's not quite up your alley though, the best non-legendary dragon type is actually Jormuntide, who you will see again in this list later. He is a dual type dragon and water mix, and he just has the best non-legendary attack stat in the entire game, along with some other great stats mixed into it too. But simply, this guy is an absolute beast of a pal that you can get a lot earlier than you'd expect, and if you give him dragon attacks, he becomes one of the best dragon types. As far as picking him up for yourself then, you can find multiple Alpha World Boss versions of this pal around level 45-ish, or you can breed into him far earlier in the game if you want to as well. Fourth up then, let's talk about Ice type, being the type that is strong against dragon, but weak against fire. And for the final time, the best Ice type is a legendary, and it is of course Frostallion, the Ice Pegasus. Again, Alpha World Boss legendary stats and HP bonuses, pretty much impossible to beat long term for non-legendaries, and also a great unique Ice type move it has as well. And this one is found at the furthest tip area of the big northwestern Frost Mountain on the map, and as far as non-legendary Ice types go, the best one that I've actually found is Cryolinx, this crazy Mega Bloks looking guy, and he just has a really high attack stat with decent numbers on the remaining stats too to keep him going. So he just winds up being the second best, at least as far as pure offense goes, and you can find Cryolinx all over the colder places on the map, such as the northwestern Frost Mountain. Fifth today then, let's talk about fire-type pals. Fire is the only type in the game that is strong against two different types, being strong against ice and also against grass, but weak to water attacks. We've also reached the point of this list where we have covered all the legendaries, so now everything left is acquirable much earlier in the game, but still pretty undeniably the best of its type, with the best fire-type pal being Blazamut, the pal that spawns with Fire Emperor in the wild, boosting its fire-type attacks. There are arguments to be made that Jormuntide Ignis is better, at least as a base. He has better base stats due to just being Jormuntide, but fire-type, but Jormuntide Ignis can only be created in breeding at least through two other Jormuntide Ignis, which significantly limits the potential of moving skills around onto that pal, including cutting off access to the Legend skill, which is a pretty massive bonus that Blazamut can actually have, as well as being findable as an alpha world boss over here on the volcano in a mineshaft for the bonus stats an alpha has too. Sixth up, we've got our grass types, and this is a bit of a rougher one. There's no overtly standout grass pal that just has insanely higher stats than the rest, so it basically comes down to a choice. Lyleen, as a grass pal, can spawn in Wildlife Sanctuary number 3, which we talked about earlier, has pretty solid stats, not the best, but has a partner skill that provides pretty substantial healing that makes it a really good utility pal for the harder, longer fights. If you are wanting pure stats and combat power though, your best grassy option is going to be Wumpo Botan, owner of one of the best names in the whole game. This guy is just a giant ball of statistics, good damage, great defense, high health, and can be found on Wildlife Sanctuary number 2 over to the west. Seventh then today, let's go over the ground types, and the thing about ground types is they seem a bit underpowered simply by virtue of there being a significant lack of electric types, which is what they're strong against. And the fact that there isn't that many of these means that a good ground pal will only really get you so much. That said, there are two pretty comparable entrants here. The first one being Pure Ground, also has higher stats, and it is Anubis, who can be found as an alpha world boss pal in the 40s over here, or can be bred pretty easily and early on too. He's just an absolute stat machine, great moves, and his partner skill gives him a lot of survivability with the dodge aspect that it has. But if you want a bit more versatility, I would actually recommend Warsect, who spawns as an alpha world boss over here right around level 30. Warsect is mixed ground and grass type, which means he doesn't get super affected by grass as a result, which is ground's normal weakness. It also gives him access to grass attacks too, like Solar Beam if he wants it, so you can mix them and match them together to make the perfect Warsect that you want. So all in all, just a very viable and versatile secondary choice. Eighth up then, let's talk about electric types, which are weak to ground, of course, but strong against water type pals. As I mentioned in the last section, there is a bit of a lack of electric pals, and from what I've heard from others, statistically speaking, you can technically build a better electric pal by taking just a high stat non-electric type and giving it full electric moves than you can by using an actual base electric type pal. But for the sake of sticking to our theme, the best electric type pal properly is probably Orserk, who can be found on Wildlife Sanctuary number 3 or bred into a bit earlier on. He's got a pretty solid unique electric attack, pretty decent stats, and he also boosts the drops that you get from defeating water pals. It's just a nice little bonus. However, it's arguably possible that this gets dethroned, at least for the moment, right now, immediately, as there is also Grisbolt as a pal who spawns over on Wildlife Sanctuary number 1. He has decently close stats to Orserk, just a little bit less, but more importantly, Grisbolt has a partner skill that involves riding, which unlocks a bit of a separate tech that I've not even had to mention until now. I mentioned this in a video recently, but for whatever reason, the attack cooldowns of a pal that is being ridden are separate from the cooldown when not being ridden, meaning that a pal can use the attack manually, then you get up and ride them and use the same attack again, even though it should supposedly be on cooldown, which actually as a result makes any rideable pal actually notably stronger than any non-rideable pal, just as a result of that, which makes Grisbolt technically stronger than Orserk, at least for now, as I do expect these separate cooldown things are probably a bug that will be patched out at some point. Then finally we have the water type pals, with water being weak against electric but strong against fire. And it's worth pointing out that there are more fire type pals than any other type in the game, which does make your water type pal a bit more important as a result. The best one, by far though, no contest, is Jormuntide. You can find him as an alpha world boss in a couple of spots which I mentioned earlier, but it is worth mentioning this one is actually sort of worth breeding down into a non-alpha version just for the size reduction. Sure, you do lose some max HP, some other stats, but he just functions a lot better in the wild, moves a lot better, aims his attacks a lot better if he isn't half the size of your screen when he's 10 feet away from you, which the alpha versions are. As I mentioned with Jormuntide earlier as well, he just has absolutely nasty high stats. He also spawns with 20% water type attack boost skill, and you can breed high tier passives into him quite easily too. So he's just a particularly strong pal in general that also happens to be a water dragon type mix. And that just about does it then, everyone. The strongest and occasionally also the second strongest pal for each elemental type in the game. Of course, things get a bit more complex if you want each of your pals to cover multiple elements, and maybe if you guys like this video enough, we'll talk about some sort of ideas for team compositions of super high power pals that cover every damage type you need in the game. So let us us know your thoughts below, and of course let us know what you think about the list. Obviously it's mostly based on stats, some of it I tried to base from actual use cases, and things like adding secondary options when the best is just a legendary, or the whole mounting thing that I mentioned, so hopefully no matter what stage of the game you're at, this video will help you out in one way or another. Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.